Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Bill, and hello to all rookies, rookettes, semi-pros, pro wannabes,
There you go.
wallabies, and kangaroos.
This is episode number 411, Peter. So the title of this episode is How to Lease Property and Not Do the Landlording for Gargantuan Profits. Here is the description. Are you a creative real estate rookie dreaming of being wealthy, but terrified of the landlord nightmares? Dealing with maintenance emergencies, renters' evictions, and vacancies can suck the life out of your profits and freedom. But what if I told you there is a way to collect rent checks without all the landlord responsibilities? In this single episode, we will reveal the simple technique we use to rake in wheelbarrows of dough and never get one single call from the tenants. This game-changing episode is the most powerful strategy you could hear about creative real estate. And we don't talk about it enough. I'll tell you why in a minute. What you will discover today is so powerful. If you use it, you will become a millionaire by mistake. Learn all the benefits of renting property. But the tenant does the landlording for you happily. After today's chat, you will have a clear blueprint in your mind how you can generate huge cash flow. So brace yourself for this mini masterclass full of actionable strategy that you will want to start doing immediately. You can't afford to miss this episode, because we've never done anything like this before. Not as explicit as I'm going to give it to you today.
Good.
So let's do the housekeeping. So first of all, thank you for all of your support and being here. Thank you for watching us or listening to us. That means a lot to me anyways. I know it means a lot to Peter as well. I would also let you know, I wanted to make sure my recording was still on. I also want to let you know that if you have any questions or any comments for this podcast, you can join us Thursday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the exception of some vacation time and holidays and stuff like that. We are live. We live stream the podcast, and then we release it on Monday mornings on the podcast platforms. So you can join us if you want to go to Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And you could type in questions if you are on one of those platforms and we're recording or we're live streaming. The point that I want to make here is you can send us in questions about the podcast, but if it's not about the podcast, you have to go to flippinghouses4rookies.com, hit support top right hand side, and you will I'll make sure you get your answers to your questions. Also, if you want to join our community on WhatsApp Messenger, we have like a mastermind group there with a little over like 100 and something people in there that are like-minded, and it's a great place for you to go to ask questions. I monitor it myself, so I'll sometimes answer the questions, but there's a lot of people in that group that are active and can help you. And of course, if you have any personal questions for Peter and I, just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. And top right-hand side is a support. Also, I do coaching. So if you're interested in that, personal coaching, if you're interested in that, send a support ticket in and I will get to you. So, that's it. Okay, Pete. Okay, Pete. Today, I want to cover how we collect all our money in creative real estate.
That's good. That's what the boys and girls want to hear, Bill.
So what did I just say?
We're going to show you how we collect our money in creative real estate.
What's the key word there?
Collect?
Right. It's not how we make our money in creative real estate. It's how we collect it. Because the old rule is, I didn't make this up, I just know it because I've heard it, is we make our money when we buy.
Right.
So why don't you, for the sake of me talking too much, why don't you explain what that means to you?
Well, what that would mean is when you purchase a property or take control over it with the paperwork, you have set up the financing on it. How much you're going to pay monthly and how much is the overall price in the end, how long. You're setting up the financing, and when you find the buyer, you're setting up what you're going to get in. You're setting it all up there. But then you have to go through it and actually collect it. But it's all planned out. You're not just winging it like some of those TV shows. I bought a property, I don't know what I'm doing, but I sunk every dime in it and I'm screwed. You know, that's a new show like that. But you're setting everything up so you can closely estimate what could happen, but then you go through the procedure of collecting then.
Right. So, in a short summary, that's good, Peter, thank you. In a short summary, you need to know how much you pay and how much you collect. Right? So, what you're doing when you're acquiring a property is you should have an idea of what you can collect.
Yeah, that right there is a game changer because people sometimes don't think of that or they guess. And I think it was about 2 years ago that it kind of came up amongst us rookies and you that if we had a better idea what it would sell for or what we can collect, we'd feel a little better what the heck we're doing when we're going in. And you do it naturally because you're experienced and we're like, we don't really know. Right. So when we worked out how to figure that out, close estimates, it made it easier to know how to get in the deal because you know how you're getting out. That was a real game changer for me and a lot of people. Right.
So what Peter's talking about is if you can sell a pencil for $1, then your expenses to acquire that pencil should be less than $1. So what we do a lot of with our coaching clients, and I'm a part owner, or I am one of the main founders of Creative REI Replay, which is a software that does all this for you with calculators, and it's all automated. You hardly do anything anymore. And it allows you to set these deals up. But the point that I'm making is I suggest to a lot of those coaching clients that if they're nervous about buying a property, or they have a deal with a seller and they're not sure about it, instead of going and doing 4 days worth of research and being uncomfortable and or giving stupid offers that won't buy the property because it's too low so you could make more money because you're nervous, just sign an option agreement with your seller and then go find a buyer that will pay more. Now you're going to give the seller, it says a legal tender, which means any paper money, so you need to give at least $1. We give $100 for a non-refundable consideration deposit. So the only thing we're risking is the $100, or the $1, or $10, or $20, or $50, or whatever you give the seller, right? So that's the only thing you're risking. And then what you do is you go find your buyer, and your buyer will do all the work for you. They will do the inspections, the due diligence. They'll do everything for you. You don't need to do anything except just post the ad, which we show you how to do in Creative Real Estate, Creative REI Replay. There's a whole system in there on how to automatically sell your houses. It's incredible the way it works. All you do is put a phone number in an ad, and the ad comes back to, and we even show you how to make the ads and all that, and the ad comes back to your Creative REI Replay system, and it's all automated. It sends them to the house. It gets them to take a picture of their driver's license. It sends them all the paperwork. It sends them applications. It's all automated. So the only 2 points of contact you have with your buyer is A, when they send you a driver's license to get into the house, and B, when they're sending you an application saying, I like this house, I want to apply. Right? Everything else is automated. So anyways, we do that when we do lease. So we could get a lease option with a person, a seller, and we could do a sublease with a buyer. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the sublease with a buyer, or when you actually sell a property, right? So what I'm saying, what we're trying to say is you make your money when you talk to the seller, because obviously you're going to make the difference between what you pay your seller and what you collect from your buyer is how you make your profits. And we call that money now, money monthly, money later. Some deals, like slot deals, the sandwich lease option transfer deal, which is wholesaling lease options, is just money now. There's no money monthly, there's no money later. If you do a rent to own, which is a sandwich lease option where you stay in it and you got 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow, then you have money now, which is deposit money, money monthly, which is rental income, and money later, which is income. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, right? So we collect our profits from our buyers, right? So quite frankly, we don't talk about this collecting money for financial freedom nearly enough, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? So what I'm saying is, if you temporarily, I mean, realtors do this, right? They sign a listing contract with a seller and they go find their buyer.
Yeah.
And if there's not enough people looking at the property, it usually means it's overpriced or it's dysfunctional. And dysfunctional means, there's a 10,000 square foot house with 1 bathroom, 1 bedroom, or you have to walk through the kitchen, or you got to walk through the a bedroom to get to another bedroom, or there's no closets in any of the bedrooms. Right? These are dysfunctional houses, which, by the way, dysfunctional houses still sell. It's just they're overpriced usually. So it's usually always price.
Right. Yeah. Well, if it's dysfunctional, you can't ask too much. You gotta give a little bit. Right. I talked to somebody at a house like that recently. Said, yeah, second floor, there's 2 bedrooms. You can't get to one without going through the first one. So
yeah,
it's a little weird.
So the point that we're trying to make here is that realtors will list a property and then come back to you and say, oh, we need a price reduction of $10,000. If somebody's searching for a $160,000 house, they're not going to find your house because you're listed at $161.
Yep.
Right? This is their trick, right? So they'll ask you to reduce it by $10,000 so you can get more action on the house, right? So, which means you could do the same thing. If you sign an option agreement and the price is wrong, and you go 2 weeks or 30 days and you don't get enough action, you go back to the seller and say, well, hey, the price is too high.
Yeah.
Right? And you just adjust it. So
right.
There's no...
It's really neither up to you or I or them or us. It's like the buyer. If nobody wants to pay you, we're going to put a gun to their head. So it's the market tells us what's happening.
Okay, so that's a whole 10 minutes of... I didn't expect to talk about that, but I think it was important to what we're going to talk about, because the next thing I want to talk about is a funny thing, a funny fact. All right, to me, this is funny, right? Being a landlord is technically not considered an occupation by the Bureau of Labor. Funny, right?
I've never heard that.
So
not considered an occupation
by the Department of Labor or by the National. There's no statistics on it. It's not considered an occupation.
So they must consider it an investor thing, something?
I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, like you don't work. You just buy the house, sell it, rent it, and just sit back and make money and not do anything? Not really.
Right. How about this little fact that curls most rookies into the fetal position when they think about it? The word landlord. The word landlord comes from the Middle Ages because a person who owned land then was also its lord, who was in charge of the local government. So in the Middle Ages, I don't have dates, but in the Middle Ages, we'll say 100 or 200 years ago, probably a couple hundred years ago, the person that owned the real estate was also the lord that ran the government.
Yeah, they'd have a lot of land, not just like a plot here and there. It's a lot.
But in today's language, a landlord means, now this is interesting, Peter. This is extremely interesting because you've never heard this from my mouth because it's new research.
Oh.
So in today's language, landlord means the owner of property, as in houses, apartments, or land, leases it or rents it to another. So the owner of property leases it or rents it to another. That's a landlord. Which brings us to the difference between leasing and renting.
Oh, yeah, I don't know that. What is it?
The main difference is the length of time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've heard that.
Rental agreements are usually short term. Some say short term is 6 months. I say it's 12 months because most leases are 12 months.
Yeah.
Or rentals could be month to month.
Right. That's
Now,
pretty short.
In Connecticut, we're pretty liberal. So I've changed my leases recently because I have apartments, right? Not all my properties are the way we're talking about today. Because you and I decided we want to go in the apartment business, so I bought 6 or 8 apartments. I think it's 8. I think I have 8. It might be more. I'm not sure. I think it's at least 8. And I decided that doors I'm talking about, not buildings.
Yeah. Units.
Yeah. And I decided I wanted to learn what it's like to be a landlord, so I went and bought these properties, and I still have them. Right. So my lawyer has me do 3-month leases, and then they go month to month. And the reason why is because the evictions in Connecticut are easier month to month than they are on a 12-month basis. So it's easier for me to get somebody out. I don't have that trouble because of my vetting process and how I go through, because I treat my tenants like my lease option buyers, and I kind of wring them out a bit, right? So rental agreements are usually, I'm saying, short term, which means 12 months or less. Leases are typically longer in time, right? So to me, it's 12 months or more. Right? Now, today's number one head jerker in this podcast is how all this information is a big fat lie.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's bullcrap. What I just told you is bullshit.
Well, I wasn't going to ask, but like, can't you say I'll rent it to you for 3 years or 5 years, or I'll lease it to you for 1 year? I mean, it's a contract. You can put any numbers you want on it.
Oh,
no?
the lease isn't the problem. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, leases. It says usually longer. It doesn't have to be. I mean, you could lease for a year if you want. It's just that the leases are usually longer because they're a little bit more detailed than a rent. Okay? What I'm talking about that's bullshit, and where most rookies will get their head twisted around a pole, is the landlord aspect. Because so many people buy into these concepts. Oh, I don't want to be a landlord. When in truth, it's just not correct. It's not true at all. You're not being a landlord. Here's why. We talk about creative real estate being the power of controlling the documents that control the property. So creative real estate has nothing to do with the property. Just like the banks want nothing to do with the property, the banks want the people to want the property, so they have to come get a loan with them.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing the bank cares about is the appraisal. So if you don't pay, their collateral will get them their money back.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the bank cares about. They don't care about anything else other than, will it appraise for the amount of money that I'm lending or more? Because if you don't pay me, I want to come take that puppy back and get my money back.
Yep.
Right? Now, we won't get into this whole thing, but The Creature from Jekyll Island is a book you should read. You should go on YouTube, type in the words Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a book. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to buy it again and read it again. I think I'm going to do that because it's been a while. But it talks about our monetary system and how it's a big fat lie. And all these loans and everything these banks are doing are 1,000% against the constitutional law. It's against the law. It's against our American Constitution, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that means you don't need to actually own a property to be a landlord or collect monthly leases or rent payments. So the definition says you have to own the property and another rents it from you. And this is ingrained into us from the banking system. So the bankers are telling you you need to own the property to rent to another. Right?
Yep.
So in our world, in other words, creative real estate, the word landlord is actually becoming obsolete. Right? It has a negative idea or feeling or connotation to it. Oh, I'm a landlord. Oh, he must be a scumbag. Right? Because that's what people think. Is this making sense? We're not technically landlords because some of my properties, I don't even own them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I just manage with a lease with an option. It's like I don't own it. Like when you get a lease option from your seller, you're technically a property manager with an interest buy-in, another principal buy-in. Mm-hmm. They're giving you equity to have you manage their property. And that's very important what I just said, because when you're talking to a seller, you have to explain it to them. Well, how about if I become your glorified property manager by getting an option agreement signed with you and becoming a very minute equity share partner?
Mm-hmm.
So technically, you don't own the property. Well, you do own it because you have some option. I mean, some equity share there, but not a controlling equity share. So the word landlord is becoming obsolete. Does this make sense?
It makes sense that we don't have to own the property to collect, but we are collecting. How about that part of it? We are collecting the money. That's the whole point. We want to.
Right.
What about that part? Is that still okay, or is that different?
Yeah. So for the sake of cleaning out some cobwebs in your old noggin, right? Mm-hmm. Let's give our actions in creative real estate a proper name.
Sure.
We're house providers. We're not landlords. Mm-hmm. This gets rid of the landlord stigma. Right? We're house providers. We provide buyers with houses.
Yep.
Right? That our sellers are giving us terms on.
Yeah.
That's creative real estate. How does a seller give us terms on the house? Well, we don't own the house. We're not buying the property. We're buying the paperwork. So the seller has a deed in his name or her name. They have a loan with the bank in his name or her name. So we don't need to go get new money because they already have the money in the property, which is why I say real estate's made to take money out of it, not put money into it, because the seller already has the money put in the house.
It's already financed.
It's already financed. They already own it.
Why finance it again if it's already financed? Just take over the managing the finance.
So what we're going to do is we are going to rent to own from the seller so they don't have to manage the property and still get their mortgages paid or their expenses paid or whatever they got to do. And just get money for either, because when we pay them rent, they're going to have principal pay down, they're going to have depreciation, they're going to have appreciation, they're going to get all the benefits of still owning the house, which, by the way, allows us to pay up to 70% more than market value on a 3-year lease. Because the deed is still in their name, and we're just managing the property or managing the paperwork because they're giving us the rights to do that with an option in a lease, and we never own the property. The property has nothing to do with it other than we need the property to find a buyer that's interested that will pay us money, just like a bank does. And when you get that concept in your head about creative real estate, it changes everything, because that's where the no risk and all that stuff come. Because we're not putting our name on the documents to be the collateral for the property. Mm-hmm. If we don't pay, we walk away. We're not the collateral. We're not the collateral instrument. We're not on the collateral instrument documents. We're nowhere near to be found. We're just a lease option. Right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're house providers. Now, this is the second big myth or mistake almost all rookies make. They think they're going to find a deal like subject to, seller financing, or even a lease option with a seller, then sell it to our buyer with a lease with an option to buy.
Sure.
That's a lie.
No.
We don't do that.
Okay, what are we doing then?
And the thought, lease with an option to buy, puts a noose around our neck. And at any given time, the lease option buyer can kick the bucket out from under the rookie's feet and hang them. When you say lease with an option to buy, here's why. You must do this process backwards with your buyers. And this is the biggest mistake I have with all my coaching clients and with anybody that I've ever trained. I know it's a mindset. It's a play on words, but it's a play on words until you do it and it becomes actionable. If you do not do what I'm about to tell you, you are absolutely, positively screwed. You are a glorified landlord and you will have problems. Right? I told you we are house providers. So we need to set up our paperwork and our system so we provide people with houses. Actually, the way we do that is we're actually financial house providers. We're like a bank. We're providing a way for them to financially live in that house. Technically, we're paperwork providers so they can live in the house. But most people wouldn't understand that, so I went with house providers, right? And if you don't do what I'm about to tell you, you will get no empathy from me when you are carrying the plunger in the middle of the night going to a property. Here's the secret. You are not leasing a house with an option to buy. You are selling a house and leasing the buyer or letting the buyer lease from you to live in it until they can get a loan. It's backwards. If you do not take this viewpoint, I know it will seem subtle to some people and they'll think that I'm over dramatizing this point. But I'm telling you, until you start living the dream and you start doing what I do every day with me and my students, or my students and I should say, right? You will not understand the significance of this viewpoint. If you are looking at it backwards, you are screwed. If you do not look at it the way I'm about to show you or teach it to you, you will not make it in this business.
So you're talking about reversing it instead of like you can lease the house and maybe you can buy it later. No, you're buying the house, and I'll let you lease it while you're working out buying the house, buying the house, buying the house. Does it change the paperwork at all, or just what we're emphasizing?
No, it doesn't change the paperwork. It just changes the mindset of your buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're saying right now, I don't want to sell the property, because there are a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to keep all my property. I don't want to sell. I don't want to have buyers with lease options or options to lease. Yeah, there are people like that. I have coaching clients like that. I don't want to sell it.
Well, that's true too, but I think that would be a different deal that you would figure out, you know?
Well, here's the thing. Statistically, almost none of them cash us out anymore or exercise their options. In fact, after COVID and the interest rates and all that stuff going up, it's even less than ever that they exercise their options.
Yeah, you said that. So what happens? They just stay, or
I set them and forget them. Now, it's a viewpoint. It's a way to look at the deals.
Yeah.
So what I did is I figured out some years ago, and you know this because I've told this to you guys many times. My life changed when I realized I make more money on the defaults than I make on the properties. Reason why is because when somebody defaults, they walk away from their $20 or their $10, $20, $30,000 option consideration deposit. They walk away from that, and it allows me to get another one. Mm-hmm. They're usually in the property for several years. We'll say 3 to 5 years, we'll say 2 to 5 years. It's usually 3 to 5 years. So that means I have appreciation, so I can get more for the house. Yeah. Right? Often they do work to the property, so it's of more value. Right? Mm-hmm. And the rents have gone up because the price of the house goes up, right? The payment goes up. Mm-hmm. So I can get more monthly. So the defaults are better for me. When I stopped doing that, all of a sudden I didn't have all the attention on collecting rents, which, by the way, if you have attention on, oh my God, they're not going to pay the rent, what are you going to get?
They're not going to pay the rent.
Right. So I don't have any attention on that because I just know I want them to not pay the rent, technically. Right?
Well, I think the magic is, and I learned this in other fields too, when you have a problem of any kind, it's actually an opportunity to make money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a friend, you know him, one of our friends, engineer, worked for a big company that does space shuttle things and spacesuit stuff. And then one day, the computers weren't working very well. They call the company and they go, oh, that's terrible. We'll be right there to write you a big contract for more computers to make us more money. A problem is an opportunity to make more money if you look at it as that instead of just a problem.
Right. All right. So now watch this. If you rent a car, are you going to clean it? Are you going to do maintenance on it? No, you're going to put gas in it and you're going to drive it. Now, okay, so if you drive on the beach and get it all muddy, yeah, you might put it through the car wash. But I'm talking about, are you going to wax it and clean it and you're going to make sure, you know, all the interior is clean? No, you're not doing any of that. You rented the car. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. But if you own that car, will you take care of it then?
Sure.
Will you wash it and do the maintenance? Especially if you have a monthly payment. There's the trick. You have a monthly payment on a car, we'll say $300. Mm. If the car stops running, are you going to keep making that monthly payment?
Probably not.
Well,
what are you paying for?
You're going to have to make the monthly payment, otherwise they're going to repo it, and there's other problems. But the point is that if the car's in the driveway and it's not running, and you're making a payment, it's going to motivate you to do what?
Well, you need to get operational again so the thing works for you, so you're not wasting money.
This is the viewpoint of our buyers when you do it reverse. When you're buying the house and allowing payments until you can get a qualified mortgage, this is the viewpoint your owner will have. Mm. Well, I don't want to keep making a monthly payment if the furnace isn't working. oh, if I leave, then I'm going to lose my $15,000. So I might as well fix the furnace for $1,000 and keep going.
Well, sure, you got that. You get the big deposit on the other end. Sure.
Right? See, at the end of the day, in other words, when all the chips are down, right, your buyer cannot find this deal on any street corner. And this is the best marketing in the world. I have a coach that I work with for about 3 hours every Friday morning, and I can tell you that I've been with him for years. I started off with him as a Facebook coach, and he's become more than that. And the reason why I stick with him is for this simple reason. He taught me the best marketing in the world is when you stumble upon something and think you found it by accident. And if you could create that effect in marketing, like I found you by accident, oh my God. There's no way I would have found you. I would have never known how to find you otherwise. And technically, I put myself in front of that person so they could find me by accident. So my marketing is designed that way, but they don't feel that way. They don't feel like they're being sold if they found me by accident.
Yeah, you're not like banging on their door. You're there. They open the door. They see you. They can choose or not choose, but they have a selection point there.
You're walking down the street, and all of a sudden you look in a store window, and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I've been thinking about, or I've been looking for. I never thought of that before. What is that? I better go check it out. I never knew that existed. This is how we sell houses. The buyer has the viewpoint that they stumbled upon us and they found this amazing deal that will change their life because they no longer have to rent and put up with a landlord. They can own their own house. They can paint the walls, they can cut the grass, they can plow the snow, they can tell their neighbors, oh yeah, we own this house. We bought this house. Right? It's life-changing for them.
Oh yeah, they're excited about it.
If you do it correctly. If you do it as a rent-to-own, are they going to think that way? No. They aren't going to have that viewpoint. That's why you got to do it backwards. Right? You're giving them a chance to buy a house they normally couldn't buy. And they found you or stumbled upon you by accident because you were running a for rent ad. And the ad says, rent to own, or it says, actually we don't do that because that brings in
I was just thinking of that.
Too many criminals.
Yeah.
What we do is we put in the rental section, house for sale, no bank qualifying.
Yeah, see, I was thinking of that because that's how we actually promote it.
Yep.
We don't say house for rent and maybe you can buy it later if everything works out. It's like the house is for sale without the bank and then we'll help you get it later on. House for sale.
And that's
the
curious.
ad starts that way.
That's curious to a person that has to rent because they can't get a bank loan. They're like, I wonder how that works. And they find you by accident.
In the rental section.
In the rental section.
And don't they usually scream to the spouse, honey, you're not going to believe it. We can buy this one. Like, what?
Yeah.
This one here for rent? We can buy it. What? They freak out because it's an opportunity they don't usually get.
Okay, so point taken. Now let's push ahead. It is one thing to have a buyer seem like they are fired up and making promises they think we want to hear to get the deal done.
Ooh.
So it's one thing to hear them talk and talk and talk so that we could be a house provider for them.
It's like when we talked to Bill, are you saying that all buyers are liars, like all sellers are liars? Oh,
they're
God.
Worse than, they're worse than sellers.
Oh,
right?
God. Yeah.
So they will tell you anything and the most confounded stories, and they're lying and either know they're lying, which is most of them, or they don't even know it because they believe it themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Now on Bill's planet, we practice this law. Bill's Planet is me and my coaching clients and my people that listen to us or take my advice, right? Trust is when your words match your actions.
Yeah.
So we talk about this with sellers. We because the sellers think that we need to prove to the seller that we're capable of taking the property over and not leave them hanging. When in truth, it's the other way around. The seller needs to prove to me that they're capable of keeping my agreement with them for 5 or 10 years. It's the other way around in my head. It's backwards. And you'll realize this when you start doing deals, that I don't prove to anybody that I can perform. I have a whole portfolio. I have checkbooks. I have drawers of deals. See them behind me? There's a filing cabinet.
Yeah.
Drawers of deals that I have that I could prove to anybody that I know what I'm talking about. That my words match my actions. No, it's the other way around. I make the seller prove to me that they're capable of doing business with me because of the service that I provide them once I take them under my wing. Most rookies don't have that viewpoint. But the point is it works even harder that way with buyers. You need to make the buyer prove that their words match their actions. So when I'm doing a seller call, I give the seller 2 or 3 things to do and see if their words or their agreement with me matches their actions. I test them. Well, I do the same thing with my buyers. I have them fill out applications. I ask them questions. I do background checks. It's not hard to do, which, by the way, this is all done in Creative REI Reply automatically. It's creativereiply.com. is a software system that we do all this stuff automatically, so you don't even know. We even do the documents for you. Everything is done. Okay? The point that I'm trying to make here is that the buyer is going to tell you all kinds of things, so you pick them. So we need to make sure they do something so we know their words match their actions. Which means if they're not really intending to buy this house and just want to rent it, right? But do not qualify for a bank loan, we will need to help them get qualified for that loan. Because we're selling the house, not renting it.
Right.
So we wanted to have this conversation with them right up front. Like, how are you going to get a loan to pay me? If I give you a 3-year lease, how are you going to get me cashed out? Now, even though I know they're not going to cash me out, I know that because it doesn't happen. I rather have the payments. Now, some of you rookies will rather have the equity, so they will push them to honor their contract in 2 years or 3 years to get them their equity. Some rookies have that business model. I don't. Because after a while, you'll realize that money's a problem. If you all of a sudden take in $100,000 on equity or $50,000 in equity, number one, you get a tax problem, especially if you do it within 12 months. Yeah. And number two, you have to re-employ that money so you can get cash flow. The way you are going to fire your boss and not work or work less for your money is with monthly payments. That's the secret. You got to have that cash flow coming in. Right?
Yeah, but the nice part about it is we still get a decent chunk up front to make some, chunk payments.
Right.
Get rid of debt, buy something, and we still get those up front too. That's fine. It's built in.
Now think of it this way. You have a seller that gave you a lease with an option. You paid $100 for that paperwork, for the option consideration deposit from your seller. Now your buyer is going to pay you to get that document. To get those documents, they're going to pay you $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. They're going to pay you 5% of whatever, right? Which is my next point. Step number one, to make sure they're qualified, so they put their words where their action, or they put action where their words are, so you know they're for real. Step one is to ensure they have at least 5% down, so we can get them a government FHA mortgage. Now, you can get some FHA mortgages for 3%. We don't want that. We want 5%. So we're going to make sure that they have the 5% for the FHA mortgage. Right? Now, that's important because you're going to have to fight with them about their credit. Not fight with them. You're going to have to fight in the deal or work in the deal to make sure that they're qualified for a loan if you want them to cash out. I don't care. I hope they never cash out. I don't want to sell my properties. I want to own all of them. And 98% of them don't cash me out. Or if they cash me out because of the way my leases are written, I get more money because I put appreciation. I put 2.5% or 0.25% in every lease per month. So every month they go, the price of the property goes up because that's 3% a year. So my properties...
Keeps up with depreciation.
Yeah. So, if I had $50,000 in equity, and 5 years from now, it's likely to be $100,000 because of appreciation.
Question. At some point, a seller might want to be cashed out.
Right.
Right. I mean, and he continues to make money too, so it's not terrible for him either. What do you do if he wants to get cashed out?
So then you got to do all the things I'm going to talk about right now.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to make sure they have 5%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, here's the first step of our gargantuan profits. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We tell the buyer to do our program or to participate in our program, which is a no bank qualifying loan, which is AKA a lease option. It could be a land contract. It could be, it could be multiple things, right? But most of them are lease with options. They need 10% down for down payment, and none of them have that.
Right.
But we'll accept 5% for them to go into the house and move in. The other 5%, they can pay monthly above and beyond their lease payment. Right? And the lease payment is how much they would pay if they had a mortgage. You don't want the monthly payment amount to be lower than the new mortgage amount.
Right.
Because that's demotivating for them to go get a loan. So what I do is I make sure I figure out, like, today's interest rate is, we'll say 7.5%. Right? I go to mortgage.org. It's a calculator I use. Mortgage.org is a good calculator, right?
Yeah.
It populates what the current interest rate is automatically. This software. It's online. So I make sure that I take the selling price without the deposit money. So if I'm selling for $300,000, they're giving me $15,000 down, I don't do a $285,000 mortgage. I do a $300,000 mortgage. I make sure that there's no PMI insurance, which is pre-mortgage insurance. We don't use that. And I put the taxes and insurance in there annually or monthly, however you have it, right?
Yeah.
And I figure out the payment. That's how much they're going to pay if they had gotten a mortgage today and bought the house. Then I usually add a couple $100 to it, depending on your payments. I mean, if you got a $1,000 payment, you might only be able to add $100 or $150. If you got a $3,000 payment, you might be able to add $300 or $400.
Sure.
Okay, that's profit.
Maybe a percent.
Yeah. So that's profit, right? The reason why I do this is I want to make sure that their monthly payment is more than their mortgage payment. And I tell them that at the closing, when I'm putting them in the house, you're paying the big fat landlord more money than you should. If you go get a mortgage, you can reduce your price by $200 or $300 or whatever I put in there. Minimum
Incentive. Yeah,
minimum, right? Yeah. So that's what we do. All right, Pete. So some rookies are listening now, and I get this question a lot with support tickets, so I'm just going to cover it now. They want to know how we help them get qualified for a mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
So first thing we do, and I don't do this as much as I talk about it because I don't want them to get a mortgage, right? So if your strategy is to hold the house for a long period of time, you don't need to do this. But if you have a lease option with your seller and you have a deadline because the option date says in 3 years you got to bring them the money, then you need to do this, right? As soon as the seller moves into the house, make sure they move into the house.
The buyer.
The buyer, I'm sorry, I meant to say that. As soon as the buyer moves into the house and they're there for a month or two and they're settled in, you have them go apply for an FHA mortgage. Right? You're doing this because you want to know why they don't qualify. You need the list of, you don't qualify because, think, and go down the list. Because of these 3 things, or these 5 things, or because you have to pay off your mother-in-law, or because, the sun's in the wrong area, or, the grass didn't grow long enough, all these banker stupidities. Right?
The fence is too high. There's too many women living there, and there's too many toilets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Podcast number 409. So, once you have this list, you then can contact anybody, but we use Bedrock Credit Repair in Danbury, Connecticut. Just go to Bedrock Credit Repair. I never remember which way his name is. I don't know if it's Robert Stephen or Stephen Robert, because he's got 2 first names, but I think it's Robert Stephen is the owner. I met him at a BNI group years ago. He really doesn't know me from Adam, but he's a great guy. I did business with him, and I promote him all the time because he's a super cool guy. He will work with your buyers to get them qualified. Let's say there's an IRS tax lien for $5,000.
Yeah.
He'll suggest over the next 3 years you make these monthly payments, so by the time you get time to get qualified for your mortgage in 3 years, it'll be paid off. Or let's say it's a credit issue. He'll help you do credit repair. Or let's say you don't have enough down payment. He'll make sure that the money you're paying us is the correct money.
Right, and that counts toward the down payment because everything's recorded.
Let's say you just bought a business, or you just started your own business and you need 2 years worth of tax returns. He'll help you make sure those tax returns are looking good for the bank. So it's not just credit repair. He'll help you with all that stuff. Okay.
And the buyer pays him a few $100.
His prices are all over the place, but yeah, the buyer would pay them because they want to get qualified. But yeah, it depends on what he has to do. I mean, I think credit repair nowadays, wherever you go, it's $500. So
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much it is. I've not done it in a while, but that's a good point because a lot of credit repair these days is utilization rate. Like my credit goes up and down because I'll whack a credit card to buy a house with it. I got a $30,000 interest-free credit card. I'll whack it to go buy a house, or go on a retreat for 8 months.
Yeah.
I'll whack my credit card. I'm not worried about that. I got a bunch of debt right now because I was away. I didn't work for 8 months. And I was telling you before we even started this call, I'm chasing money around, cash, because I didn't work for 8 months. But am I worried about it? No. I need to buy some houses. I need to go to work. I need to do what I know how to do and just make it all back.
Right.
Right.
And the buyer knows way up front that he's going to need to spend that money too, because you don't want to get to that point. He goes, "Oh, I don't want to spend that," because he has to.
Right.
Although whether we care or not, but we want to do the honest thing too. We're not going to ever sabotage somebody so they don't get the mortgage. Right. We wouldn't do that. But it's not our job to hold their hand like their mommy or their daddy either. We set it up, and they should follow through because we're honest and decent with what we do.
The last point is even though you got a 3-year option agreement with your seller, if it doesn't work out and your buyer doesn't work out, we'll call the seller up and say, well, we can get them out and do it again if you want. I mean, what's the seller going to say? They made money that whole time. They made up to 70% more than market value in the 3 years. Because they got full asking price. They didn't pay 10 or 15% for closing costs, right?
Yep.
They got principal pay down on their mortgage, so that's a lot of money. They got depreciation write-off on their taxes, and they got appreciation for the house. And that turns out to be about 70% of market value, up to. Right? All right.
Yeah.
Now, before we go, Peter, let's talk about repairs and maintenance.
Yes. The landlord part.
Yeah. Remember, they are buying the house with an option agreement, which means by law they have an equity share in this property.
That's right.
And there's 5 to 10% down payment or option. It's called option consideration deposit. Is a non-refundable amount of money. Because you're buying the option for the house, and if you don't execute the option, then you lose your consideration deposit.
But I also think of that if somebody goes to a bank and gets a mortgage and puts a down payment on the house, if they stop paying, they don't get the deposit back.
That's right.
End of story.
Right.
Same thing.
Which means if they leave the house, they lose the 5 or 10%, like you just said. The bank does the same thing. If you go put 5 or 10% down, and 2 years from now they foreclose, you're not getting your 5 or 10% back money. So it's the same thing.
No,
right?
no.
The only way to get this money is add a credit at the closing. Okay. Now there's been a little bit of confusion about this with some rookies because they're like, so if they give me $10,000 down, do they have to give me more money when they go get the mortgage? No. You're going to document that they gave you $10,000. So the bank's job is to make you whole. So if you're selling a $300,000 house and they gave you $20,000 down, that means the bank is going to finance the $280,000. It doesn't matter when you get that $20,000. You show it to the bank. So we take copies. I put them in my files. I usually do have them get me a certified check, or Sean does it all electronic. You go into your bank account and you show that you got the deposit. Right. You get evidence and you keep that in your folder. So when it's time, 3 years down the road, to get a mortgage, the bank's going to want to see sometimes evidence that you have that money. Right?
Sure, that money never goes to the bank.
Right.
They don't care who it goes to. They care that the person paid it.
Yeah.
And it's not owed to anybody.
So why does the bank want to make me whole?
Well, my guess is that they don't loan 100%. They loan, 90 to 95% or whatever. They want to make sure someone else has done that. But also, is that having to do with the collateral?
Yeah. So the reason why the bank wants to make me whole is because they know if I don't get my full $300,000, I'm not going to give them a clean deed that they could be number one on. They aren't going to be able to lien the deed in number one position. So that's why they want to make sure that all the money's paid to me so they can take control of the deed.
Makes sense.
Okay? All right, good. All right, so now the option says they own. So when we attach our proven and tested lease to this option, it assigns all the landlord obligations to the buyer. Which means they do all the repairs, all the maintenance. Our lease says all this. It's paragraph after paragraph. They actually sign them, initial each paragraph saying they understand, right? Like cutting the grass, shoveling snow, cleaning gutters, maintaining the furnace or the boiler, right?
Changing filters, batteries.
Yeah, smoke detector batteries, right? And of course, overflowing toilets. Don't forget that one.
That should be first on the list, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if they don't do it, they violate their lease.
Ooh.
And violating the lease also means they lose their option agreement and all their option consideration money.
Wow. That is heavy weight against not calling the plumber to fix the toilet for $200. That's a lot.
So on the lease, I think it's called cross default is the paragraph.
Yeah, if you screw up one thing, it screws up the other stuff, and it's all connected.
Vice versa, if they don't make their option consideration payment, in other words, remember we asked 10%, right? So let's say it's a $300,000 house. That means we want $30,000 down. They're going to give us 5%, which is 15 grand. So now we're going to take the 15 grand and put it over the time of the lease. We'll say 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're paying their rent payment plus the option consideration deposit. 2 checks, by the way, not one. 2 payments,
Right.
not
right.
one. You don't want to mix them. They're 2 different contracts, so you treat them that way.
Yep.
That means if they don't pay their option money 1 month, it not only defaults the option agreement, but it defaults their lease, and they're going to move out.
Is it that much different than when a tenant doesn't pay and you got to go to court and all that, or do you still have to go through some of that?
No, you still have to go through some of that.
Yeah, but 1 month, that's it. They're in default.
You could technically, which I've never done, you could technically say you just lost your 15 grand. Because the contract says that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, if they don't cut the grass or if they violate the lease is both of them, they're cross default. So if you violate the option, it loses the lease. If you violate the lease, it loses the option. The paperwork is specifically designed, which is, it cracks me up because I think I charge $2,000 or $3,000 for all my paperwork. I think it's $3 grand. I forgot how much it is, or $2 grand. And people balk at how much. Well, I'm going to tell you right there, that's worth it. The money for my lease is worth it right there, just for that one paragraph, right? Okay, so I also actually record with my cell phone. I record me in the house or at a table signing the lease and the option and all the documents for them to move in. And they know it. I am recording our conversation on tape. So if you got to go to court, it says, and I say, do you agree or don't you agree?
Yeah.
And if they say they don't agree, then I pick up my paperwork and I leave, because that means they're going to do something. I'm recording it for my private use to make sure that everything I promise you gets delivered. Get how you do that? I'm recording this because I want to make sure everything I promise you gets delivered.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't want to cheat you with a he said, she said match later on. This way here, everything's documented.
Yeah. And it works both ways, obviously.
Yeah.
But you present it. It's for their benefit too.
Yeah. So it's a pretty sound system that they actually make you a millionaire by mistake. Because if you keep collecting your payments, it's money now, money monthly, money later.
Yeah.
And like you said, you get chunks. Money now is chunks of dough to pay your debt. Money monthly is your income so you can retire early. And money
Paycheck.
It's your paycheck. And money later is your retirement money. So later on, what's going to happen is one day you're going to wake up and all of a sudden you won't have any principal to pay. Your loans will be paid off. And instead of having $40,000 worth of equity, you might have $140,000 worth of equity.
Yeah.
If you just go along every month, you work your couple hours a month. You go into apartments.com, which is how we collect our payments, and you see who's paid and who's not paid. If somebody's not paid, you send them a text and say, don't violate your option. You might lose your money. Quote unquote. I mean, I don't do that, but now you have the choice. You don't have to take their money away from them, but you can hang it over their head.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think the rule is you apply whatever pressure you need to get the job done. If it's really bad, you just keep upping the ante and just keep using more pressure. Hopefully you don't have to, but if you do.
Remember what I said at the beginning of the podcast. You make more money if they default.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you did. I remember you told me the story. Somebody didn't pay, or no, it's not that they paid. The wife didn't like the house, so they moved out. The guy lost his $20,000 deposit, so he did it with somebody else, and he got another big chunk of money.
Yep.
So
in North Haven.
The technique is to not look at problems as just problems. Look at it as an opportunity to do something with it and make more money.
There's only one reason why there's a problem anyways in anybody's life. There's only
Yeah.
one reason for a problem. Only one reason, and it's a definition of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Non-confront. You're not confronting something, so it's become a situation you don't have a solution for because you didn't confront it. You didn't look at it for what it is and see if there's some solutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lack of confront. So
That makes sense.
anything you have in your life that's giving you trouble, it's because you're not putting your attention on it and you're not confronting it. You're not hitting it face on.
Right. To me, it's like you don't have to know the answer right away because I don't know. Well, that's okay. You don't have to know right away. Just keep looking at it, chew it over, talk to somebody, ask questions, look at it, and go, come up with a plan, come up with another plan. And you finally come up with a solution. Just keep hammering at it. You'll find it.
Yeah, definition of solution means problem goes away. Yeah. All right, Peter. So we're all done. Thank you, everybody. Oh, yeah, by the way, this isn't podcast number 411.
It's not?
No, it's podcast 411. We just gave you a lot of information. You got the 411 on how to rent properties to make gargantuan profits. Okay?
Right.
So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for all your support. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Make sure you like us. Make sure you leave us a comment. And we record the podcast on Thursday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you want to join us, just go to any one of those platforms on Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. If for some reason you can't make it there, then by Monday we are on all podcast platforms. If you have any questions, you can email us or send a support ticket in at flippinghousesforrookies.com. And if you're interested in getting done-for-you software to buy properties because you have a job and you don't have enough time to actually do deals, then go to creativereireply.com and you will see how you can do deals while you get a full-time income. Mm-hmm. All right, over and out. We will catch you on the next podcast. Thanks for your attention today.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.